Hey everybody, welcome to episode 10 or 11 of Collect Football Live. Today we have a guest, Brad Nolan. Welcome, Brad.
Great to be here.
Yeah, man.
Great to chat with you.
Hell yeah. We've been chatting a lot in the Discord DMs, and you just got kind of involved with soccer cards and then vintage cards. But why don't you kind of give me an idea of like maybe your history with like collecting in general, and then we'll go on from there.
Yeah, I mean, from being young, growing up, of course, I always went to the baseball card shops with my parents, get those those early Donruss cards for a quarter. Anytime I could, anytime I saw cards, I always wanted them. It was just something that we did when we were younger. I mean, I even collected those little Archie comics from the grocery store. I mean, I've always just kind of been a collector.
Hmm.
Um, when I always like would go and try and collect a lot of, like Bo Jackson, and growing up, especially in Chicago, a lot of Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, all the Bulls players, as many of the Bulls players as I could get, like I wanted them. Which the Bulls actually kind of got me into autographing because I'd go with my parents to where the Bulls worked out in the early '90s, and we'd wait there. And my parents had a membership to a sister club where the Bulls worked out, so we could like go inside and watch the Bulls work out. And I got Michael Jordan assigned cards. I got Scottie Pippen. And, I got all these Bulls players, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like I got like my heroes when I'm 10 years old, like signing this
Right.
stuff. And ever since then, it was always a draw. I lived in, later on, I lived in Wrigleyville. So I'd go to the ballpark and go wait for cars to come by, and, wait for the players to sign autographs. Just because, being a sports geek, it was just something, that brought you closer to the game. And that was kind of, something I wanted to do. And, I lived so close. It was a 10-minute walk to the ballpark. And, I always thought that that was fun, just something fun to do.
Yeah, that's actually something that's part of my history as well. Doing the autographs at the stadiums, and when I was young, and then also as I got a little bit older, I guess. Yeah, when I owned the card shop, I would actually go and get some autographs, and a lot of it would go into my personal collection, or I'd get something for a customer if they wanted somebody sign something or whatever. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun just because, just like you said, it's just kind of a way to connect with somebody that's really untouchable otherwise, and you come to find out that some of these guys are just super laid back, normal people, and and then other ones are truly the prima donnas, and
Oh
okay,
yeah.
that guy's maybe not quite as friendly, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool just to learn personalities and that sort of thing. So yeah, I can appreciate that. So basketball was pretty much your like first collecting the sport that you collected.
Yeah, I mean, when you grow up in the Bulls era,
Yeah.
I mean, I was in high school, I was in, junior high through those through those big Bulls eras, I mean, all we did, like we were so cocky. We're like, okay, like, when are we going to go with our parents to go? I mean, they had pop-up shops every year, like, oh, make sure to put money aside for our championship gear. Like we knew we were going to win. It wasn't
Yeah.
even a question. It was just like, oh yeah, this will be number 5 this year. This season hadn't even started. We're like, yep, number 5. Like we already knew as fans that it was going to happen because they were unstoppable,
Yeah.
literally. And they'd come up with these cheesy slogans like it doesn't mean a thing without the ring, 72 and 10, and like Ron Harper and Pippen would trademark it, so we all had to go out and buy the shirts. So that whole culture, it was something like, that's how I got deep into sneakers and that type of culture as well. Because growing up with Michael Jordan, especially being so close here in Chicago, everybody wanted to be like Mike. I mean, we played basketball at recess with our tongues out. We just sports just went through our blood through that era.
Yeah, I'm a few years older than you, but I'm from Detroit, so we obviously had the Pistons, and it was like a transition from the Pistons to the Bulls. So that was a fun rivalry, and that's why I just joked about the
Yeah.
boo thing. But um, so after that, like as you aged, you still collected cards. Is that true, or did you kind of go
Well,
on hiatus or anything like that?
So, right after college and like kind of through college, I really wasn't doing much of it. I was actually more involved with bands. I was a touring videographer for rock bands for about 4 or 5 years. So I was on, like Warped Tour, Ozfest, and kind of did all
Mm,
that stuff. So music really took up a lot of my time. And then after college was done, then I moved to Wrigleyville, and then I got back into autographing. And I kind of just got the idea of having that signature and that story, and anything that I got signed, I always had like a good moment, or was able to get a photo of a player, with the player. I always loved the photos, whether it was music, whether it's sports. When you're a passionate person, you kind of just want those experiences. And especially with how pricey some of that stuff can get, if
sure.
you can meet a player at a ballpark or a stadium and get that autograph for free, that's a better story than saying I went online and bought it. So that was kind of something that drove me into building a collection, and kind of moving away from cards during that era, because my cards from the 90s weren't worth anything. So
Sure.
at that point I was kind of like, well, maybe some stuff, like we bought a bunch of the Allen and Ginter cards just to try and get signed by baseball players.
Yep.
When these players would walk into Wrigley, because Wrigley's so old, they had to like get out of cabs, and you could walk with the player into the stadium. So I was like, well, what am I going to get these guys to sign? I'm not going to print photos of Joe Schmo, the pitcher who I've never heard of. So we get a bunch of cards and just kind of get the cards signed and stuff like that.
Sure. Okay, so then
So
when did you really get into like the card collecting or investing or however you want to call it? I
yeah,
know some people like to kind of change those to where, one's offensive and the other one is okay. Um, Personally, I think
yeah.
that you're both regardless. So, but anyway, when did you kind of get into that? Like, how many years ago would you say?
Well, how I got back into the whole card market in general, I realized how expensive that these wax prices were getting. Some of these boxes, of NBA Mosaic, Optic, all this stuff were, they were going for good money. And one thing that I do love being in, in the sneaker culture and other types of things is there's ways of making money to offset cost of your hobbies and stuff. So I was buying wax and just selling it. I had no emotional connection to it. I just saw dollar signs, and it was like, hey, free money, So I was buying bulk, lots of boxes of Mosaic and selling those. Probably sold a couple hundred Mosaic boxes. And then I got bored one day, and I was like, I had all these Mosaic cello packs sitting here, and I opened 100 of them. Just opened 100 of them. Then I kind of started dabbling into it, like selling on eBay, and kind of learning more about how the actual cards itself, rather than just a quick flip aspect of things. And that kind of brought me into the NBA market a little bit, kind of like a lot of people, where, we're in weird times where, people have a lot of time on their hands, people getting fed stimulus checks, and they had a little extra money to kind of mess with. And, me being a collector and kind of understanding it, I was thinking to myself, well, if I'm going to sell this wax, I need to learn the markets and see what else I can kind of work with. So I came back into it with more of a like a flipper mindset. I'm not
Mm,
going to lie, that's what it was. How I got into like the soccer stuff is a little different, but just in general, I started putting some cards aside. Me personally, I don't really think that Zion is kind of going to be that long-term guy. He's just the guy that, has that injury history that reminds me of Greg Oden, like just one of those guys you just don't know. And
right.
I, so like when I was looking up other stuff, I kind of came across Neymar, and that kind of brought me into like, I was like, okay, like this Neymar Prism card. And in my mind, at this point, this is maybe mid-July. I'm like, okay, oh, this is Neymar's Prism card. This is his rookie card, right? So that's in my mind. This is what it is. This is, I'm coming from a newbie point of view,
Sure.
and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, this is his rookie. So I watched this Neymar card. I watched this Neymar card for about a month. All I did was I was like, well, okay, it's I see one for $18. I'm like, nah, like I need to learn more about it. Learn more about it. So another month went by, and it was up to like $35. I was like, oh, like, why didn't I pull the trigger? This guy had a Dutch auction for $20 for 30 of them. I could have just bought them all and got into it. So it hit $40. I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy this card. I'm gonna buy this card. Then what I did was I jumped into the rabbit hole that's YouTube, which a lot of people can hate on it, but when you look at YouTube and you look at like all these like top five cards I'm buying right now, which flooding YouTube in any market, basketball, baseball. I mean, you search sports cards, you're going to see, top five cards of this or that.
Sure.
Well, when it's a normal thing when you don't know what to do, like let's say you want to fix something in your house and you want to learn how to do it. Sometimes, looking on YouTube will give you that answer. But not all the time with cards, because when you do that, it's already too late. If you're
Right.
watching a video on top five cards to buy, those are the top five cards you should not buy. And that was something I didn't know, because I was like, oh, I literally had YouTube going, and then I had another tab with eBay. And I was like, okay, yeah, I don't know who this guy is. Here's an example, Adama Traore. I'm like, I don't know who he is. This guy's hyping him up. Okay, I just go on and buy a Prism. Like that's what I did. I did that for a couple of weeks, and I guarantee you, some people might not admit it. I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one out there that's done that. And instead of really taking the time to learn about soccer, because I don't have a big soccer background, I I wasn't raised. I can't really, say that how many soccer games before this year I watched on TV. We didn't have the World Cup in 2018. Even then, we barely could get soccer on TV. So
Well, and you're going to represent most of the wave of collectors that have entered the soccer space in the last 4 months. Like your experience, I bet, is the most representative of the population at this moment.
yeah,
Um, so I agree. Obviously there was a lot of people that were in the same boat as you, and that's why we had that sharp jump in values in August. And that's an experience that a lot of people had, and it's something that we can all learn from, including, maybe even us in vintage, um, not to go too crazy early on, because it's just common that when you jump into something, you kind of go a little crazy to start. You want to get everything, and
yeah.
and that
You want it all.
yeah,
You want it
exactly.
all at once. All at once.
Yep.
Everything I can get at once. Yeah.
Yep, and I'm still guilty of that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, there's things where I'm like, okay, I know there's something I want to buy in 2 weeks, and I know it's up for auction, but look at this. It's ending in 2 days, and it's such a great, it's a great buy. I'm gonna buy it anyway. And it's just,
Yeah.
it. Everybody can fall into that, and a lot of people did fall into that. So that was
Yeah.
like one of your major issues, was just being an uneducated consumer, essentially.
Right. Yeah. I
And
mean, as far as soccer in general, I mean, when I was in Paris in 2015, I like whenever I traveled a lot. So I always wanted to kind of embrace sports wherever I went. And I mean, I was, obviously aware of how big soccer was around the world. I respected it and I wanted to be a part of it and see it. So I actually went to a Champions League game in 2015. I went to PSG versus Real Madrid, and I was like, okay, who's this Zlatan guy? And I called him Zlatan. I didn't even know how to pronounce it. Zlatan
yeah,
Ibrahimovic. Like I did not know how to even pronounce his name. But I'm like, okay, Ronaldo's playing versus some other dude, some Swedish guy. I'm like, I don't even know who he is. And my guy I used to go to this health foods cafe. He's a big soccer fan. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to this game. And he's like telling me about how like he was like this like gangster guy and stuff like that. And like a really cool story about Zlatan. And so I was like, oh, that's super cool. And then I go to the game. I pay like $350 for my seat. Because I was a solo traveler, and I'm looking around. Everyone's dancing, cheering, waving flags, hugging, but the score was 0-0. And I was like, well, what happens? I had no idea.
yeah.
And the whole culture of European soccer is so different than going to an American sporting event where, like there's entertainment before the game. There's stuff to do. No, you walk into the stadium, you watch the game, and you leave. Like there was like one concession stand. You might get a scarf on your way out, but besides that, it's a whole different experience. A whole just a different experience. So
Yeah, and it's a beauty because, like, honestly, you're in and out of there in 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I mean, typically, maybe for a Champions League match, it might be a little longer. I don't know, but um, yeah, it's different. I think if everybody experienced the matches, I think they would have a whole new respect because truly the entertainment is the crowd. It's the fans. Everybody's just
yeah,
it's a party really, and the American sports is reasonably sterile, like especially professional sports. Like college sports, you maybe could argue it's a little bit different because people feel a little bit more connected, but in
mhm,
soccer you have, it's local people cheering on their team and it's just a different mindset really. And
yeah,
they've grown up with that team forever. I mean, it's kind of like baseball in a way, but there's just a whole different passion and you know, it, I can't if I could go to any sport, it would be a soccer match. So yeah.
yeah.
Um,
And I mean, later on, actually, so when I went to Spain, I made it a goal. I was like, well, I'm in Spain, so I gotta do something soccer related here. Real Madrid was out of town, so I actually went on a tour of their stadium, at Bernabeu, and it was incredible. This big museum. You go through the locker room, and I was mystified by this. I was like, this is one of the most incredible stadiums I've ever been into. You go on like the like in their like I don't want to say dugout because I'm gonna be naive, but like their bench.
mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm still new to soccer, so I
No,
don't know the
you're good.
proper term, but the bench and like you go on the field and you just look up and you just see this massive stadium. And then I actually went to Barcelona right after and I saw Messi play. I saw it was Barcelona Ibar and I saw Messi score 4 goals. And I
Oh, that's
saw so many
amazing.
people going crazy. So it was like my redemption of going to see like Ronaldo and Zlatan go head to head and score 0, and then I go and see Messi score 4. It was just one of those things like those memories that like one of my favorite travel memories ever. So
Yeah, that's
after
amazing.
those memories kind of drew me to like wanting to learn more about soccer, but the idea of it not really being accessible and the American team wasn't really anything special besides our women's team. It kind of like I kind of paused on it because I was like, this isn't enough to draw me in when I'm not in Europe.
Yep, I get that.
So
So you had a short experience with modern cards essentially because then like you and I crossed paths. I want to say it was in early September ish, and you
yeah.
decided you wanted to kind of jump into vintage. So what kind of prompted you to kind of change gears a little bit?
Well, once the August bubble, if you want to call it the bubble of soccer cards, kind of just dropped, I took a look at everything that I had and I was like, well, okay, I have all these soccer cards and I'm a visual learner. So anytime I get a card, I learn about that player. I'm not just buying a lot of, random players. I'm buying specific players and I do, a little research on them. So I kind of understand them, obviously now a lot more, but um, that was one thing I was like, well, okay, I'm going to bring, I'm going to buy a bunch of cards and learn about it. So when the market, thank you, Vince. Appreciate that. When I'm buying these cards, I'm learning about the game in the process. So, I mean, I do this for fun. This isn't something that I'm like, I need to, put my money into cards that are going to make me money. It's more about, I can have that shot of making money and stuff later on. I mean, everyone's saying, oh, we got the Euros, we got the World Cup, we got all this, we got all that, but nothing's guaranteed. Like, you can't count the chickens before they hatch. You can't just assume that a certain card is going to go up. You can't assume anything. So when you buy stuff, you have to buy, especially soccer. Like as far as the flipping, I don't really flip any soccer cards whatsoever. It's more of like a personal collection. So I took a step back after seeing all that, and I was like, well, how do I really learn about soccer? How do I really get to know it? Because I'm starting kind of fresh from a sport. I figured it was a good opportunity for me to start from the beginning, and that brought me to vintage. And there's a couple of guys, Vince being one of them, that I always watch a lot of the soccer YouTubers still and kind of see what's going on. I was watching Brandon Chung, who a lot of people know. He's a goofy dude, but he's funny and entertaining. And,
Sure.
I think that's what it's all about. That's what, you should be watching videos that are fun and entertaining. So he mentioned you and vintage. And then I went on your channel, watched a bunch of your videos and kind of learned about, about stuff. And yes, I did have eBay open, kind of looking at stuff because and I'm not going to deny it, hey, I want to learn about it, see market prices on stuff, if you're not going to educate yourself on, the player and the price of like their current market, you should kind of know what you're getting involved in. So, I mean, I had never obviously heard of 95% of the people you were talking about,
Sure.
and then I kind of just started doing my own research about people, importance, what makes this person important in the game of soccer, what makes, why is Pele so great? Well, how many World Cups did he win? What part of the greatest, World Cup teams was he a part of? Who was with him? Didi, you know, other it's just like you kind of learn about Garincha, you learn about these guys that were played a role with Pele. So I wouldn't know any of this stuff. I wouldn't if I didn't kind of do my own research on top of it. So and the stories are crazy, like Matthias Sindler, like you
Yep.
mentioned, like the
Hmm.
mystery behind him, he what didn't he like they found him like something with a chimney, like he had like monoxide or something like that. Like
Yeah, they claimed
I
that his death was due to carbon monoxide poisoning, but everybody else believed that it was a hit by, that a doctor comes in and just says that's how they died, and that's pretty much the end of the
yeah.
story. And you know, later on, many years later, people came out and said that they were, there was cover-ups because it was a hit by like the Gestapo or whomever it was. So
Wasn't it also because he wouldn't play for Germany
yeah,
because of the Nazis?
yep,
I think. Yeah.
yeah. So it's
Just
just a
like crazy
political.
stories. You don't hear stories like that. Like
Yeah,
we don't get to hear interesting stuff like that. Like, I mean, Zlatan being a thug and a gangster, like that's about as close as we're gonna get, like to nowadays,
I love that guy.
but
Yeah, he's so
but
arrogant.
he's got
It's
a story.
awesome.
But that's
Yeah,
the thing. He's got a story, like, I mean, how many players out there can be like that and actually get away with it without
sure.
being hated by the fans,
Yep. Yep, he is
I
just so
mean,
brash and so yeah, but so really was there a specific reason like that you decided to go into vintage as opposed to staying? Like I know you transitioned into it, but was there
yeah.
something that you just kind of said, "Man, I'm gonna steer clear of this newer stuff and head into vintage."
Yeah, this is why I spent $375 on this PSA 8 Cristiano Ronaldo. $375 on a PSA 8. So you know what I said? I need to figure out what I'm doing here and make smarter investments. And I just felt like I was being reckless. And I felt that when I looked into vintage, I felt that there was a big opportunity not only to learn, but to make very long term investments. And that's what I wanted. That was the main thing that I was really trying to do at this point. I mean, I could still move NBA, NFL wax if I want to, but long term investments for me, I wanted to go a route that was something that would work for me that I could really learn about. And it's perfect. I mean, the vintage market's already just going crazy. I mean, even the Discord, I think the Discord's doubled in like the last month.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
gotten, like it's already that's the prices on PWCC auctions are going crazy. And I mean, honestly, I think I'm in this too late as it is because of the way the prices are. I mean, maybe I'm not, but just seeing how things are going already, everyone going crazy over, George Best, Barrett, Barrett rookies. Like, it's like everybody's battling for like the same two cards now. And it's fun, but it's definitely gonna, prices are gonna keep going up, and
Yep.
people like you and Al that have been in this for decades, I mean, you're in a great spot. You've been waiting for this, and it's here, and you know,
Yeah, I could see where that would be daunting for a new collector. Just the fact that with the prices, because you know, I'm like you say, I'm less worried about it because I already have a briefcase full of cards that are all shooting up in value. So if I want a particular card, it's because I can sell something, that's already gone up in value. Whereas if you're starting without those assets that are appreciating along with the market, it does make it more challenging. And yes, you're getting later than many, but you're still in it quite early in regards to the actual maturity of vintage soccer as an industry.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, the prices are much higher than they were 6 months ago, but I can't imagine what they're going to be in 6 years. And that's the thing. And I mean, I guess that kind of my follow up question was going to be like, you typically like to flip things, but you've decided you're not going to with this soccer, and that's pretty much. I probably just answered the question as to why, but is that kind of what your thought process was? Is to
Just
say this
too
is going to
much
be my
potential. Too much potential. There's not enough supply, and I mean, I can't see the demand going down. I mean, if everyone believes so much in the soccer market, if it's going to be as great as everyone's saying, well, everyone's going to look back at these legends. There's so many legends that are just sitting there that nobody's even paying attention about. And people would rather have a parallel of Christian Pulisic who can't even stay on the field, or would you rather have like one of the all-time greats that's a top 10 player, in the history of the game? I just, in my eyes, I just think that that's a no-brainer. Like, I've already made the mistake of going for the hype, so why don't I go for the player instead of the hype? That was my intention and my goal with vintage, and you know, I just feel like I'm making the right decisions on it, and I'm learning along the way. If I lose money, um, then I lose money, but I don't see that as something that, I mean, it couldn't be worse. Any decision I make from this point, especially with vintage, it couldn't be worse than $375 on this. So that's at least my mindset behind it. And actually, I'm having so much fun with it too. I've meeting, kind of talking to you and Al, and honestly, the most struggling part of vintage and the hardest thing of all is information, because people don't know what to buy. People don't know, what about this back? What about this inverted back? What about, the 19 millimeter? And I'm talking like Bobby Charlton's. Everybody,
yeah.
all these people on YouTube talking about Bobby Charlton, you know, and it's just, it's strange, because if everyone's going to focus on that, then, then it's going to keep moving and moving and moving, like I see Johan Cruyff, like everyone's trying to buy Johan Cruyff now, and it's just going to keep moving on to the next player.
You're
But
absolutely right.
I'd rather it be those guys than, oh, it's Kamavinga today, then it's Pedri, whatever. Then it's Jude Bellingham. Then it's, all these new guys. Well, why can't you make one of the old legends then your new guy of the month? Like, why does it have to be these guys that are 16, 17 that, are going to have print runs of 10, 20,000 when you could get you look on the pop report and there's maybe 10 of these cards graded. I just don't see the why someone would choose that over this. And maybe they're in the moment. Maybe they want to, like, they love watching them play and want to have the card of the person in their team. And I get that, and that's awesome.
Yep.
Everyone's collecting to collect, and if you're going to buy for long term, then you're going to buy for long term and do it differently. But for me personally, I just felt that it's a great way of learning the game. It's a great way of making investments at the same time, and I'm meeting some pretty cool people along the way too. So
Yeah, right on. Yeah, actually, the Discord group's fantastic. I love the mix of people in it. There's some super knowledgeable people in there. There's some newbies, and everybody's just trying to figure everything out because nobody has all the answers. And actually, as a collective, we don't have all the answers. That's the fun part of it. We learn things, and we get to share it with each other, and it's kind of
yeah,
a cool little community. But what was I gonna say? Oh, you were mentioning how like getting priced out and that sort of thing. But the interesting thing um, with vintage is that you kind of get to research maybe players that aren't quite as, like you say, how it feels like it's kind of moving from player to player. Some of the greats, people are like, okay, I can't afford this card anymore, so I'm gonna go to this player, and then I'm
Yeah.
gonna whoever the next player is, like Garincha might be next, where his stuff just goes crazy,
No,
and
Stanley Matthews. That's the one I've been hearing next. Everyone going Ardath Stanley Matthews. So that one's, it went Bobby Charlton to Stanley Matthews now, or at least we're moving, into the 30s now. So
right.
at least we're going that route. But
So
yeah,
you can go find somebody else because there's so many guys that also played the same era as Bobby Charlton that are almost equally as you know regarded, but he's doesn't have they don't have the hype quite yet. And if you
yeah,
find those players, you can get them for dimes on the dollar, and that's just a part of doing research. So you can still find treasures. There's a ton of treasures everywhere, and especially in vintage because you can't collect everything. So just maybe just learning about the history of certain countries and attacking like certain eras, you might be the first person really digging deep into that era, and you might find something super cool. Like the other day when I was going through those old cards, and I found the guy who was the first Englishman to play in the World Cup, and he played for the United States in
yeah.
1930.
I
I was
remember
just
you
I was just
posted
going
that.
on
Yeah, yeah,
Wikipedia and looking up these players' names to see kind of what their history was like, and I found that. I'm like, oh, that's damn cool. Like that's just a cool thing. And for $10 that you could buy them for on eBay at the time, it's like 1922 card. At some point that card's going to be worth more just because of that story. And
yeah,
as Americans get more involved, just the fact that he was on the 1930 World Cup squad, those sort of things.
yeah.
So there are opportunities out there, and it's not, so I get how you feel that way. Like, yeah, you're not going to be able to go out and just buy a Pele anymore. Like that, unless you got 10 grand in your pocket that you're willing to throw out, or maybe less, but like it's in the thousands, right? Like for you to get like
Yeah.
a one of the more regarded Pele cards from '58. So, but there are other players, and there's other players that are that are going to maybe not quite get to his levels, but 75% of his level, or maybe it's 50% of his level, but
Hmm.
the prices at this moment are substantially less, So
For sure.
that's the at least what to me is rewarding because even if I get priced out of something, like I have a couple the Elifa Pele's in my lockbox, but I'm not buying any more of those. They're just so expensive now that it's just like it doesn't make sense to do that.
Crazy.
So just move on to the next
Yeah.
thing, because as a flipper and as somebody who likes to do that, it really doesn't matter what the item is. It's just a matter of getting it and knowing you're going to be able to move it for more later. And pretty much that's vintage. It's like going to the arcade and there's already all the credits in the games. You don't have to put any quarters in. It's just you get to go play the game and you know
Pele,
you're going to
Pele can
win.
tear his ACL. Pele can tear his ACL, and it's not going to do much. I mean, that would
Yep.
suck, but hey,
Yeah.
it's not going to affect his card value at this point. So,
Exactly.
you
So
know,
it's super safe, and the demand is just going to grow. And I mean, it's just built-in free money, in my opinion. So, okay. So now that we've gotten to the point you are collecting vintage, is there anything like do you have a focus yet? Um, do you anything that's kind of caught your eye? Like
mhm.
I want to do this, or what's your goal at the moment? I guess.
Well, I'm still looking at some of those like big legends that I don't have. I want to try and at least get a piece of a lot of these guys because I feel like it's a good starting point, right? And one thing about soccer vintage that a lot of people are going to get frustrated with that coming in new in this soccer vintage is rookie cards. Well, you could say, oh, this is his rookie, but then there's a card 3 years earlier than that from another country that actually might be his rookie that you don't have and you're never going to get. So I think getting that idea out of your head of going for the rookie and not the rarity might be something that a lot of people struggle with. Because we're drawn from our American culture. We want the rookie. We want the rookie, and I think that, and obviously the condition, right? Well, you're not going to get a PSA 10 of 99.9% of it, and that 0.1% of the PSA 10s are in Al's collection, so we're not going to see those anyways. But 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 still, like, the idea of condition, I had a buddy of mine that I'm doing my first PSA submission. So, I put like a 1902 Meredith, a Bloomer, a couple of, and I'm going to mispronounce. I know it's not Heinerly, but I'm going to call it Heinerly because
I call it the
I'm
same.
American and I have
Yeah.
no idea what to call it. So I'll call it Heinerly.
Vince, tell me how to
About four of
pronounce it.
those cards. Yeah, Heinerle, or I don't know, maybe something like that. I don't know. At least I own it that I don't know how to pronounce
Uh,
it. But grading some of those just to put away, just to have them. And the idea, if I get, on that Pele, if I get a PSA 2, I'll be impressed because that
sure.
card probably is a PSA 1 or like an authentic card at best. So lowering your expectations on condition, I think, is something a lot of people are going to struggle with because a lot of these cards have probably a lot of history themselves of where they've come from and what they've been through wars, through who knows how many times they've changed hands. You don't know. So um, I think getting over the idea of condition was something that was a little bit of a struggle for me at first because you always want that minty fresh card. So as far as what I'm focusing on now, just trying to get a couple more of these legends. Like it'd be nice to get a Johan Cruyff before I'm priced out of it. It'd be nice to get a Maradona, but again, I'm already kind of priced out on certain ones. So maybe I'll, instead of a 78, I'll look into some of the other 79s that they have. Not always trying to, that's what I'm saying, like not always focus on the rookie, but focus on that rare card instead of that. So I guess it's kind of more or less kind of what I'm looking at, and trying to be creative. Nobody's paying attention to goalies. Well, that same thing happened to me with NFL cards. I bought a Harrison Butker card for $20, the kicker on the Chiefs. And then I bought another one for $1, a silver of his rookie, and he hit a game-winning field goal. And I sold the rare one that was out of 49 for $100, and then I paid $1 for the other one and sold it for 30. So just nobody was buying kickers. Who's going to buy a kicker card, right?
Sure.
So stepping out of your box and trying to find something that people are focused on strikers. Well, what about current goalkeepers? What about any of those players from 2007 through 2012? I don't hear anything about Iniesta. I don't hear anything about, and I don't know how to pronounce his name because again, I'm still newer to soccer.
Sure.
Uh, Javi. I don't
Xavi.
like Xavi. Yeah, him. I know he's important. I haven't done my research on him, but I know he's underpriced. I know these mega cracks and stuff like that. If Messi's mega cracks worth that much, what about these other guys? I mean, these Mundi Chromos. Like I just got an Antoine Griezmann in the mail. I think he's struggling a little bit, but I felt, hey, he's got potential, and maybe down the line that thing will be worth something. But if not, I think he's a good player, and I like it. I like the card. So
Sure.
kind of just getting creative with things. And if I see a YouTube video of top 5 people I'm buying, then those are the least 5 people I'm buying because I don't want any part of that anymore. So
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, and that kind of goes to show you where the market is right now. It's not saturated because everybody's looking for just those truly top players at the moment, right? So, and this is why I feel like you aren't in the game too late because there are those values out there, even with cards that I would consider modern, and so that's exactly what I meant was that if you could do a little research and into players that maybe you're not quite familiar with, or and find out maybe who's those players in the 20 to 50 range instead of the 1 to 20 range, like
yeah,
at some point people are going to get priced out, the 1 through 20, and then the 30 through 50 are going to be what people are looking at because that's all they'll be able to afford, and it's just going to keep moving back, and that's kind of at some point it'll stop. And just like in baseball or whatever else, you have your stars, you have your semi-stars, and then you have your commons, and that I'm sure that's where we'll get to at some point in our lives. But that's, I think, in my opinion, quite far down the road. So I think there's still a ton of opportunity for people and newbies. So, all right. Do you have any specific recommendations other than the YouTube video that you would give to maybe newer collectors?
Well, I mean, it's hard because vintage is very difficult. Information is it's just very hard to come by. So, I mean, there's a couple of books you can buy to kind of like first rookie card, but then that book has kind of been proven to give false information too. A lot of those, it's kind of outdated. So, um, kind of there's websites. I know one that you've mentioned before on a previous feed that's really good about, looking up cards and stuff. So, maybe that would be put the link to that in there. I forgot the name of it, but that would be a good one. So you can kind of learn, the history of like the sets and maybe a little more information about what you're buying. Because a lot of these, if you're going to go on eBay and you're going to look for a card, a lot of the stuff, the sellers in Europe really don't put much information. They might put like a couple of words and that's it. And then on top of it, you don't know what condition it's going to arrive. You don't know if they're going to pack it. And I got a sticker in the mail in like a little plastic bag in an envelope with no cardboard, nothing, that came from Spain. So you don't know how it's going to arrive. It's always a big mystery. You don't know how anything's going to arrive. So I guess be prepared for that. Be prepared for surprises because people will surprise you with how they ship to you too. But as far as information, um, I mean, honestly, the only place I've really found most of my information from was like, you know, finding the right people, get involved, talk to people. A lot of people that know me know I talk a lot. I have question after question after question. Like that's how I learn. If you
Sure.
don't ask questions, you're never going to learn. And to be honest with you, I think that if you're not asking questions, then are you really wanting to learn? Um, I just think that that's important. Asking questions, bothering you and Al is my go-to. So I'm not suggesting that for everyone listening to this, but
Yeah, thanks.
uh, but in general, talking to people, learning, kind of just looking at history. Look at instead of looking at what's up on eBay, why don't you look at what's already sold on eBay? Look and see the years of the cards. See if maybe a certain card looks better, that has a little more color to it. A lot of the older cards are black and white and kind of boring looking, but maybe you'll find a card that has a little more pop to it that stands out more. I mean, most of these cards are rare, so look on the pop report and see if it's even on there because some of them might not even be listed. Do the full research on that, especially if you're really going to make a purchase like a random Pele or something like that. I mean, you're you're definitely going to be able to find information on a Pele, but like um, I don't know, research as much as you can on ended stuff as well. But me personally, I just ask a lot of questions
Yep.
because that's just how I learn.
No, I dig that. All right, so Vince just asked a question about um, what doing research means to us. And so if you want to answer it, or I can, either way.
I'd like to hear your answer
Okay.
first.
Okay. So when I'm doing research, like, I mean, I can't know every player in every uh, country in every era. So what I'll often do is like first just look into the individual countries, look at their if they have any sort of record keeping as to goals, as to maybe the stars of those countries. If they have a Hall of Fame, looking to see who's been inducted into their local Hall of Fames. Um, I know Al's done a lot more research than I have in regards to that because I'm very much focused on the players that I feel are going to be more in demand as a in America. Like I think that there's certain locations that people are gonna be drawn to, and that's just what the countries with the big five leagues, in my opinion. And and so once I do that, then I'll kind of look at like who the successful teams were back in those particular eras, see who the main contributors were on those teams, and then I'll do research into their stories, into, like a lot of those early British guys were also professional cricketers. So they were Bo Jacksons of the 1902s, So
Move over Dion and Bo.
that's
You got
right.
some competition here.
That's for the American watchers. But uh, so like that's my initial look into it, and then sometimes I'll just go on to the websites that sell the cards and just go into their collectibles section, and I'll scan without searching anything, and just like maybe sort it for most expensive according to auctions, because I feel that's where you're going to get the best idea as to like what the type of cards are that are in higher demand. Um, just learning about the different sets, learning about the different cards that are available, and yeah, it's tough with the rookies. There's a lot of, there's a battle kind of between overseas and locally in the United States as to the rookie thing. I don't see why there is. I mean, if other people want to collect something and the Americans want to collect first year cards, then okay, but I feel like the Americans are going to drive those prices up quite high compared to just because of the collecting culture in America, and that's where most of the money is going to be spent. So that's kind of the basis of my research, like at least just kind of, like what I'm gonna kind of do when I'm looking into a particular region or something. But by this point, I mean, this is a decade in, so I feel pretty comfortable with um, at least that those top 20 guys of each country. You know what I mean? It's, once
Yeah.
prices kind of start pushing higher and higher, I'll start going further back and looking at different guys. Like for example, I just looked at there's a few guys. I'm doing a thing where I'm collecting a card of each guy who's won more than one World Cup. So there's some guys from Italy. I mean, there's not a lot. I think there's 21 players, and there's like three guys from Italy from the 30s that I really didn't know anything about. So it was something that I got to learn about these guys. You know, there's cards for sale for $6 for these players that have won two World Cups. Like it's just kind of crazy to me,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of what I do. It's just like let's look and see who's won the Ballon d'Or, just who's won the European Player of the Year, who's won whatever, and just look at that list and see if there's maybe some players I'm not familiar with, and look into them. So that's
Yeah.
my
I
answer.
mean, that makes sense though. I mean, you're so deep into it. It's a little different on my end because, like for example, you mentioned these guys that you can go on and buy cards for $6. Well, one way, Vince, that actually did a lot of research too, that I haven't even told Bill this. So on his website, he actually, on all his cards that he has up, he has a little paragraph underneath talking a little history about each guy. So I could click on a random guy. I'm like pre-war guy. I'm like, oh, what about this guy? And I could read a little paragraph about what this guy did. Matthias Sindelar, he's the Mozart of football. They called him the Mozart of football. I mean, little random fact of that. Like, I think that's cool. Just
Yeah.
you kind of, if the story is something that you like, and the price is cheap, and it's something you like that means something to you, and it would go good in your collection. I say, grab it. I found a Silvio Piola card that you posted in the chat, and I thought the card was so cool. It was $8, and I like his name because I like the Italian name, Silvio Piola. I thought it was cool, and he has a story. So
Yep.
the card was super cool. It was cheap, and now maybe I'll learn more about his teammates and what he did, and kind of stem from there. You start at one spot and you kind of move along, and I guess just not being focused on how much money it can make you later is something that I think people gets clouded in their brains because they're like, if you're focused, like, all right, I'm going to buy this card now. I mean, like, it's known that most cards, it doesn't matter who, but, if you're planning to hold them, someone's going to sell the card eventually. Someone will come along and sell the card. So that that's going to happen at some point, but you're buying it because you like it. You're buying it because you like the story. That's my mentality when I'm looking up a lot of vintage guys. I just think it's fun. I want to have fun with it. And if people are so focused, like, I mean, yeah, if you're going to spend 20 grand on a Pele, then yeah, you're probably going to be a little more serious about that. Or maybe you're just loaded and just want to spend the money and and say you have a Pele. Like,
Sure.
I don't know. But I mean, I think everybody's reasoning for their, is this a flip for a short term? Are you keeping this long term? Are you just collecting to learn, And um, yeah, I think the research kind of just depends on the person's intentions.
Sure. And honestly, like, I mean, it's kind of goes back to where we started. I think that most people are all of the above. They just don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
Um, it's you're kind of frowned upon if your money is your driver, and but I think it all is for everybody to some point.
Mhm.
Or else we would just like be constantly like just
Yeah.
we would never sell anything, right? And it would just be in our collection
And what's the
constantly.
market?
And
A market is buying and selling. You can't have one without the other.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
I mean, I think people should just whatever. If you sell something, you sell it. Like,
Yep.
who cares?
Yep.
It's a card. It's think of it as something. You're like, well, you know what? There's something else I want, so I'll move this to get the other card that I want.
Yep.
People sell clothing to buy other clothing. People get a nice pair of sneakers and then they want a different one. They want a new pair, so they sell those.
Yep.
I don't see the problem with it. And I don't think that I think people need to be true to themselves with that, because if you're masking behind your intentions, then I mean, I don't know, then that's all you're doing. You're not being honest about it. I mean, I don't know. Like when I bought the 1959 Heinerle set, right? That thing is put away. Like I didn't buy it to flip a couple of cards. I didn't buy it to get
Right.
a couple graded and sell it. I bought it to have it. I mean, apparently there's only two complete sets in the world. So
That's
why would I
awesome.
sell that? Why would I sell that? Like
Right.
Carl says, it's me and the guy who wrote the other book. Uh, the I forgot the name of the Carl said, the not his book, the other guy,
Yeah.
Jerd, whatever his name is. But I think that's so cool. Like,
Hell yeah.
that's, to me, that's rarity. So when I'm researching rarity over, instead of rookie. Like, I'd rather have the rare card than that RC logo. That RC logo they made. You want a Messi rookie? Go on Tops UK and buy one right now, because they're throwing the rookie card logo on everything right now. So what is a rookie? What is a rookie at this point? Like,
Yeah.
you got guys in the select set for 2020 that have a rookie logo, and the guy's 30 years old. So
They're
what
not
in the soccer
doing.
market? What good is that? Why focus on
Yeah.
that?
Tops is doing a disservice to the whole industry by doing that crap. So
Mhm.
they're making it they're making it easier to screw new people, and they don't understand that they're destroying the market that they're trying to build up, because people
Yeah,
are going to buy cards like that and then see that it's not worth anything, and they're not going to stick in the hobby, and they've just screwed themselves. So uh, that's
basically.
that's why we'll stick to vintage. You don't have to worry
Exactly.
about
That's the
that.
thing. Like, you can say, hey, I think it may be a rookie, but it's a cool card. Why can't it just be like a rare card? This is
Yeah,
a 1934 Ardath Stanley Matthews. Yeah, it could be his rookie, but what if there's a 1931 card in Brazil that nobody what's up, Richie? There's a 1931 card in Brazil that maybe is sitting in some grandma's basement that nobody will ever get. You don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. That's what makes vintage soccer so great, because there's so much mystery, and you don't know what else you're going to find, because these cards are all old. They have uh, nice, Vince. Thanks. They all have stories to them, and like, if you would have told me a year ago I'd be buying like a 1902 Billy Meredith card, I'd be like, what? Like, why? But
right.
I think these guys are all time greats. They're legends, and if nobody else is buying them right now, I'm gonna be buying them, because
Yep.
that's the route I want to take. And I'm not buying them to get graded and flip on eBay right now. I'm buying them to put away. I'm buying them to, you know, learn more about them. Maybe I'll find other cards of them, but I want a piece of a lot of these guys right now. And that's, I think getting a little bit of each guy, maybe if I don't get a 78, 79 Maradona, well, maybe there's a cool 83 Maradona that has like really cool color on it that, just is sharp and looks good to me. I just feel like that people should just focus on the rarity instead of the rookie.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, I kind of agree that they should. You definitely need to focus on rarity. I agree, but if you want to focus on rookie, by all means.
Yeah.
I there's going to be a demand for it regardless because of Americans. So I think that the demand's greater, which will counteract the maybe the less rare aspect of that card. But what was I gonna say? Oh, 1982 World Cup disc Maradona. It's a pretty
Yeah.
nice looking disc, $40.
That's
So
yeah. I was actually looking at one of those little discs on eBay, and someone has one up with like dots over the eyes, like drawn in on the eyes, and I'm like, someone's gonna sell that still for 400 or 500 bucks. It's crazy.
yeah,
Like, I don't know. It's not appealing visually to me enough to to
sure,
take my money for it. But
yeah,
I mean, hey, if someone likes it and that doesn't bother them, then
yes.
that's for them.
Somebody will
That's
say
them.
I want that. I want to say I have one. And
Yeah,
you saw that.
I saw that.
Okay, that's awesome. I love that
Yeah,
the crowd is chiming in. It's fantastic. You brought your fan
absolutely.
club.
Yeah, hey, I told a bunch of people I was doing this. I've never done a live stream before, so
Oh,
it's
cool.
kind of cool to
Yeah.
to share my story. And if I can stop one person from making this mistake, that's enough for me.
Oh, that's
I mean,
awesome.
but you know, hey, everyone's got to learn somehow, right?
Yeah. So I literally bought three Cafu 1993 cards for $1 each, and I'm pretty happy about it. He two-time World Cup winner.
Okay,
Just so simple, like a
nice.
dollar, and it
Yeah,
makes me just as happy as that those cards I showed earlier. So, um, point being is you don't have to spend a ton of money to uh, get in this hobby. So,
yeah,
yeah, that's awesome that you got to do or that you brought your fan club. Hello to the fan club. Maybe we can have annual meetings here on YouTube. Um,
absolutely. I'll give you a year update.
yeah, well,
Wow,
hopefully, maybe
Vince,
maybe
come
we can
on,
do
man.
maybe we can have quarterly meetings or something like that, right? Like see where you've headed
Absolutely.
in your collection. But the point being with that 59 set or 60 set or whatever you want to call it, that's where it gets kind of cool being in vintage because you're like, wow, only have like one of a handful of this in the world, and it's
Yeah,
like, I mean, that alone makes it like kind of that's an aspect you can have that's like it's actually true. You know what I mean? Whereas like parallels and stuff with new cards, it's like, yeah, there might only be five of these that say that there's five, but there's literally thousands of them that look exactly the same, but like a different shade. Like
yeah,
it's all like just constructed, the rarity. So like you're getting stuff that the chances of somebody trying to build that set completely would take forever, and maybe one more set can be built.
yeah,
Maybe a couple, but there's never going to be 20 of those sets out there. So that's awesome, and I'm
yeah.
jealous.
I mean, a lot. Hey, you had your shot. You could have
I
bought it
did.
too.
Yep.
But like for example, like so, we have these NBA guys that have crazy pop counts. You have like Luka Doncic, right? I had his 2018 Prism PSA 9 of it, not a PSA 8, Vince, a PSA 9 of this one. And I was like, well, there's 23,000 of these cards graded already, with probably another 4,000 of them sitting there. So I sold that Luca Prism, and it's not at the top of the market, and I know that. I know I could have held that card and made more money,
Mhm.
but the timing is right where I could move that 500-600 bucks and move it into that set. That way, I can kind of make my collection rather than what people should be buying. If
Hmm.
everyone's saying buy Luca, buy Luca, buy Luca, well, then when's that card? What's the long term value on that card when there's so many graded? There's, you know, 25,000 of them out there. Like I just mentally long term, that just gives me the chills because there's too many question marks with that when I don't know. So these parallels just never appeal to me. Like I opened up a ton of NFL Mosaic. I probably opened over 100 boxes of an NFL Mosaic, and I put aside a base set, and then I sold all the parallels, and just a few parallels I got like paid for most of all the boxes, and I got a free set put away. I got my rookies, I got all that, and then I put all the rest of the money into vintage soccer because I felt that I could move that money into into something more long term. So I got my money back for all the boxes. I got a free set, and then I made money on top of it by putting it into vintage soccer. So, I don't see anything wrong with people doing things to flip other things to make, to help their collection,
Sure.
especially like vintage soccer. Like I'm trying to grow a vintage soccer collection. Yeah, it's cool to have a Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert rookie, but how many of these mosaic boxes are out there? Probably a ton, So, um, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's all about what you're looking for and what you're looking to do.
Yep. It was really eye-opening to me because I don't deal with a lot of new cards. Like I'll go buy something if it catches my eye or something, but um it really opened my eyes when you posted those population counts for that Zion Prism. It was just like,
Yeah.
okay, there's 24,000 graded, and there's probably probably double that ungraded, I would imagine. And
The guy's
then
played 20 games. He's played 20 games in the NBA. I just,
and more than 60% of them were graded 10s. But people are paying this incredible amount of a premium for a card that's basically what you should be getting out of a pack. Like,
Mhm.
why is that the case? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, so actually, so coming from maybe dealing with newer cards, and did you have experience with newer cards before March, or not really?
Not really. I mean, I
Okay.
was still more, a little bit like, some optic,
Mm-hmm.
kind of right in the beginning of the year is kind of when I started really looking into like wax and stuff like that.
Okay.
Like wax prices are so expensive.
It's
So when
insane.
wax is expensive, then of course that card has to be expensive to value the wax prices of what they're at. So,
Yep. That's a good
you're
point.
gonna a $900 box of hobby box of Prism, of course that Zion, if everyone wants it, then, if wax prices have to equal the cost of the big hits in it. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, Ja Morant, everyone wants Ja Morant and Zion. That's it. And right now we don't have a big NBA class. We have like LaMelo Ball, so everyone's still going to be going to Ja and Zion
Yeah.
because everyone's going to go back to the Luca and Trey class. Everyone will go back to Tatum and all these guys and other stuff. So I just think like, when does that end? Like, I don't want Jason Tatum's second year Prism. I
Yeah.
want,
Oh my God.
Pele's. I'll take a Pele card over that any day.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
just the idea of like the second Prism, the first Prism in this uniform. I
Yeah.
just think that has to end some point. That that
Yeah.
that can't continue on. So with vintage soccer, there's consistency. There's if I buy a card, I'm probably if God forbid I need to move something for whatever reason, something bad happens, like we're in
Yep.
weird financial times, anything happens, there's probably a pretty good chance I'm going to be able to get my money back, if not make something on it, no matter what. So I feel like it's a safe market.
I
Um,
agree.
I feel like it's only going to grow.
Yep. 100%. And yeah, the reason I was asking is because I wanted to get your opinion on like the grading. Like it's just obviously it's just crazy. Like it's almost required um, in modern cards. Like it's the market demands that getting that 10 next to that card, even though that's what most of the cards are, it
Hmm.
gives it a premium. But obviously when you go to vintage, it's a whole different ball game. Like you said, it's like earlier, it's just like let's get the card, You know, it's a premium,
Yeah.
of course, if it's a good condition, but just the win is getting the card. Like the win
Yeah.
isn't getting the card in an eight. You know, if you get an eight, then that's
Yeah.
just incredible. But like that's kind of the difference. But how like you obviously sent some cards in to get graded. So what do you feel like that's something that you're going to continue doing is getting like certain cards graded? And do you feel like the market is going to demand that at some point, like it does the new cards?
I mean, me personally, why I got those graded is more for storage purposes.
Yeah,
They're slabbed,
sure.
they're set. I can put them away. That's kind of my purpose for it, just to get them slabbed and get them, put away, and then I don't have to worry about them. It's better than I think that in the slab than in like a box in
I
general in a
agree.
top loader.
Yep.
I mean, that's just my personal reason for it, but I feel like, yeah, a lot of people are going to be buying vintage and slabbing them and then asking for that premium. I think that we're on our way to that now. I mean, there's lots of people out there, going on there, and I see it on YouTube. People buying these Bobby Charltons, people buying these cards, and just specifically to send a PSA. I mean, it happened after when the card market for soccer hit in August. Then everyone went after stickers right after that. Then the sticker market hit, but the problem is PSA is not even grading stickers right now. At least most of the time they're not. I do know. I think Vince got some back that they actually did grade the stickers, but a lot of people are saying that they're like sending them back saying no holder. Well,
Yeah.
what about these cigarette cards I got sent in? They're smaller than a sticker. Yeah, will PSA even grade those? Like I don't even know.
Yeah, they will. They have tobacco card holders. The issue is they
Okay.
don't have the mold for the size of the stickers. And so when they put them
Ah.
into them, they bounce around, and you'll see
Mm.
like somebody had gotten a PSA 10 Mbappe, and it just got destroyed because it was
Oh
bouncing
yeah,
around in
corner,
there.
corner of
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah,
so like
yeah,
yeah, it says it's a 10, but it's now like a 4,
yeah.
and so I think that was the reason that they stopped doing the stickers. But yeah, you shouldn't have to worry about tobacco for sure.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I just think that it looks cooler in the slab being a vintage card. I just think that that way I know also I'm not going to mess up the card because that
Yeah.
like, that worries me too, like I just, what if something spills on it? What if I not, I'm drinking coffee in the morning and it spills on it, So I just think that the cards just look cooler, in the slab,
Yeah.
put them away and, move on and doesn't mean I have to get every vintage card, in a slab, but I just think that, yeah, I just think it looks really cool that way,
Are
personal
you
preference.
Yeah, I got you. Are you more apt to buy a graded card, a vintage card, or are you comfortable buying non-graded card? I mean, I know you are because you have, but um, I guess like, if you see two cards, one's graded, let's say a 2, and one's raw, and they're similar prices, are you more apt to buy the 2?
I mean, if the price is close and it's already graded, I mean, and it's a card that I think looks good. I mean, SGC slabs look great with vintage
Yeah,
soccer, especially. Like, I think they look amazing. I mean, it doesn't have to be PSA. Like, I have a George Best card. Like, I don't have that many vintage cards that are already graded, but um, I have, this SGC George Best, right?
mm,
And, this guy was the Dennis Rodman before Dennis Rodman existed. This guy was crazy. He had such a cool story. And, this card has it's not his rookie. It's a 68. His rookie's 64. But like, I just think he's got a cool story. Like, so
sure.
that card, yeah, I mean, I paid up for it because it's already slabbed and it's in better condition than a lot of them. But I wanted it because I like the way it looked. And if I like the way something looks and I'm, just buying it for myself, I didn't buy it and pay up for it to just try and resell it for more. I bought it because it was already graded and I liked the way it looked, you
Yep.
know. I guess it just depends on the card. I think
Sure.
that's what it comes down to.
I've kind of been thinking about that because now there's almost an additional value in having the card already graded because you don't have to
Mhm.
wait a year to get your cards back. You know, like
Yeah.
that alone, there's some intrinsic value for buying that graded card. It's already built in, and so I mean that's something that you've never really had to consider, at least back before this huge backlog. And
Yeah.
that's it's kind of interesting that like, and I catch myself doing the same thing. But I've gotten a lot more into looking at the conditions of the ungraded cards to kind of. I'd rather have the raw card that I know is probably in better condition than the graded card, personally.
I think it's a little different though because your collection, you've been doing it for a decade now and your collection's so large. When you have a
Yep.
smaller collection like myself, I
Mm.
guess it's a little easier to kind of be like, well, okay, I'll send 10 cards in. I mean, it's not like I'm going on what's up, Andy? How you doing, man? um it's not like I'm going on eBay buying like 20, 30 cards. If you have a small collection, it's kind of easier to get stuff graded along the way.
Yeah.
So, if I find a card that's ungraded that's cheaper, yeah, I mean, and it's kind of more about patience. But, then I hear these stories that like SGC is not grading stuff too because, they don't want to do that. They don't have the time to look in the information and look up the card.
Yep.
So that's something that kind of worries me too.
Yep. That
So
makes sense.
if the card's something that's really rare and so niche, like a very, really, really hard to find card, and most of the time it's probably sold by Al because they're probably the only people that grade that. Like, I mean, I'm serious. I have to use him as an example because his stuff is so rare. So like, I know if it's already graded and I could pay a little more and know that it's already graded and I don't have to worry about the grader not knowing what it is and sending it back after 6 months, I'll pay a little extra.
Yep.
I
That
mean,
makes sense.
I just it just depends on the card.
Yep. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And it's all about just the ease of acquisition and the ease of keeping it in your collection and the ease of selling it. To be honest with you, like, when you put that up there, people are going to be comfortable buying it because A, they're going to be comfortable that the card's legit, because it's not
Hmm.
getting in a slab typically.
Yep.
I mean, that could be a whole nother episode, but um, so yeah, I mean, I buy into that and I get that. That makes a lot of sense. It's just that's gonna be a lot of money for me to get all my cards graded now.
I mean, at the same time too, but think about it, you're spending the money, but at the end of it, you're going to come out on top anyways. I mean, just, do it little by little. That's,
Yeah,
that's kind of what
exactly.
it is. Like when I get my 10 cards back, I'm at that point, I'll probably have another 10 to put in. And, I mean,
Yep.
I just feel like you can do it in a way where it'll work for you. I mean, you could sell, I know you have multiples, a lot of stuff. You could sell a couple of those to pay for your grading fees easy. I mean,
Yep.
I don't seeing it being as bad as you think.
No, I'm
If you
kidding.
do
I'm
it,
joking. Yeah.
yeah, if you do it in a way that works for you, of course. But yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see a lot more vintage soccer. I think a lot of these guys are, buying these raw cards from all over the world, and
Yeah.
we're going to see a lot more American sellers with vintage soccer, and it's exciting, but it's going to get expensive because
Oh, no
people are going to
question.
demand way more money for these cards.
Yep.
I mean, you look at a lot of these guys that are, getting so hard to find. We talk about it like Billy Meredith, like good luck. You know, a
Yep.
lot of these guys are just so hard to find. If you can get anything of them, I mean, I buy it if it's something, of course, reasonable. It's not, ridiculous, but you know, I don't know. I feel like it's fun, to collect those legends and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I
Yep.
paid $150 for a 1902 Billy Meredith, and I can't find a recent comp that would even come close to $150 for that card. So
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't know if I've seen one listed since you bought that one. So, like, I mean,
proof right
that's
there.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's the thing. It's and that was one of the quote unquote more common Merediths, or the more accessible Merediths, and I haven't seen any. So that kind of just shows you, like, everybody's sucking them up and putting them in their collections and just letting it go, or they're getting graded, and that's the other
Yeah.
option. So for you to being able to get something at that price is a huge win for you, in my opinion. So
Yeah. And it's just, I think that's super cool to have this, like, this old card of an old legend. And
yep.
Yeah, I just think the stories of them all just add so much as a visual learner, like the
Yeah,
idea of it and kind of learning about like Dixie Dean and especially Dixie Dean. I think he's one of these guys that are going to be he's going to be one of the guys that's going to be next up, to be when people are done with Cruyff and Charlton and a couple of these guys. Dixie Dean will be one of the next ones up, in my opinion.
yeah,
So
it's gonna
got a
take a
couple cards
little.
of him out of the way.
it's it's gonna take a little longer for pre-war, in my opinion. Like we're seeing a little bit in the pre-war, the price is going up a little bit, but it's not at all even close to the level the of 50s on up. It's just, and that makes sense because that's it's so much further. Nobody was alive when any of this stuff happened, so I mean, I wasn't alive for the 50s, let's be clear, but
You're not that old.
not quite. But, you know, let's see. Vince is saying, okay, yeah, he played with Cruyff, right? So actually, I haven't even looked into him too much, and it's crazy. Like, I bet you he's super prolific, and I didn't even pay attention. You gonna write that down?
I'm already on eBay. Thanks,
Oh.
Vince.
Yeah, you are. I know that. I'm not even gonna question that. But
Hey, I don't hide it.
no, hey, no, that's not even a. I don't find that to be a, negative comment towards you. Absolutely. I mean, it's just
It's a true comment. It's a
yeah.
real
Go look.
comment. People are doing it.
So well, Brad, I appreciate it. I think we've run our course for the day. This was fun. I really enjoyed it. It's nice to be able to talk to somebody else as opposed to me babbling and running out of things to say after 17 minutes. So we got it to an hour and 17 minutes, which is fantastic. And
Absolutely, man.
looks like we have our your fan club in here too. So
That's
that's pretty
Andy. He's
awesome.
he's a good guy. I talk a lot of fantasy football stuff with him. Fantasy wide receivers and running backs and like positional players. So it's a fun market to get into. I actually sell a lot of that stuff to pay for vintage soccer. So it's kind of working out well for me there. So
You
um,
sell fantasy football?
well, like we basically use fantasy football. Like his channel is he uses fantasy football to kind of correlate with like positional players that haven't been looked at. A
Okay.
lot of wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, a lot of undervalue. You get these cards for like 40 cents, and you can flip them on other channels and other like Star Stock and other stuff you know to buy other things with, buy other
Oh,
stuff you
gotcha.
want.
No, that's
So
cool.
it's
I'll
really
check.
fun. It's just yeah.
Yeah, I'll check that out for sure. That's awesome.
You're a
Uh,
fantasy football guy, so I know
I
you
do.
love that.
Yeah.
But
Yep. I absolutely am. So that'll be fun. That'll be interesting to check out. So is that a YouTube show or podcast?
he just has a YouTube channel.
Okay.
But yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. But yeah, I just want to thank you too. You've helped me a lot along the way. Without you and Al, I'd be a lost puppy in a big field. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate you guys so much. You guys helped me out so much, and yeah, I wouldn't know what I know and have what I have without the Discord. I highly suggest anyone interested in vintage join the Discord, learn, and just take it all in and make your own decisions.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it too. Like, yeah. Honestly, like, I want to help people get into vintage. Like, it's so much fun to me. I just want to be able to nerd out and talk to other people. So, like, that's why that Discord is just so much fun. And, if anybody ever has any questions, feel free to ask. Get in that Discord so I can post links and you can buy stuff and tell me that you bought it and I feel good about myself.
Don't
And,
you worry. Don't you worry.
and
I'll be asking lots of questions and I'll be buying lots of stuff that you link me to. Don't worry about that.
that sounds good. So, thanks again, Brad. Appreciate you, my man. And
It's my pleasure.
we'll talk to you guys next time.